The Gospel of Luke, chapter 7. But I'm glad you guys helped me sing because my voice has been really strained for the last few weeks. And I tell myself that I'm not going to get excited today. I'm going to maintain my voice, but that never really happens. I try. My wife keeps telling me I'm a very intense guy. I'm realizing now why. But I'm praying that my voice holds out towards the end of this message. We're going to go into Luke chapter 7, verses 11 through 17. Soon afterward, Jesus went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd went along with him. As he approached the town gate, a dead person was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And a large crowd from the town was with her. And when the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her, and he said, "Don't cry." And then he went up and touched the bier they were carrying him on, and the bearers stood still. He said, "Young man, I say to you, get up." The dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother, and they were all filled with awe and praised God. "A great prophet has appeared among us," they said. God has come to help his people. The news about Jesus spread throughout Judea and the surrounding country. I just want to speak to you for a few moments tonight from the theme of loss is not the end. Loss is not the end. And I started this week really bad because I remember losing my wallet on Monday and I couldn't find it anywhere. You know what? These things always happen to you at the worst possible time. You are running late for something, and you're looking for your keys, and you're looking for your phone, and you can't find them anywhere. I couldn't find my wallet. I usually don't lose things. It's usually Lauren that loses things. And I'm always the one reminding her, it's over there. Oh, your phone is still on the charger. Your keys, you left them in the car. So whenever I lose something, it makes me even more furious with myself because I pride myself in remembering everything that I'm supposed to carry with me through the day. So my phone is always with me, my wallet is always with me, my keys are always with me. These three things I check all the time. And when I couldn't find my wallet on Monday, I looked for it and I looked for it all over the house. Lauren's grandmother was with us, she looked too, and we couldn't find it anywhere. And for a week, I didn't find it. I actually just found it yesterday. So for this whole week, I was living with no money. Can you imagine what it feels like to go to Food Line, to go to a grocery store with just cash in my pocket, whatever I could find in the house, and looking at the ice cream, and looking at the fried chicken, and looking at all these delicious food items that I can't buy? We had 2 rolls of toilet paper this week. That's it. With 3 people in the house. Whoa. 2 TMI, but I couldn't go to the store and buy any because my wallet was lost. See, when something important is lost, it can very well completely disrupt your life. Something that you rely on is lost. It throws off your whole day. It throws off your whole week. For me, it was my wallet. And for a whole week, I literally lived like I couldn't do anything with my life. I couldn't do anything. Couldn't even go for gas. Couldn't even pump gas. But going through a season of loss, what with the scriptures we read today, it's not something that just a wallet is lost, or just your keys are lost, or you got no money, or you can't buy toilet paper. None of these things are happening in the scripture. This is a very heavy scripture that we read this evening. Going through loss is a part of our life. We cannot escape loss. It's a part of being human. There are things that we are going to lose in our life. Going through a season of loss is a part of life. And this message is for someone who has been going through a season of losing, or you have lost something recently in your life. Your spirit is broken and your hope is shattered, and this may be a scary time for you. And see, the Bible is full of examples of people who had lost hope, people who went through extreme suffering and extreme loss, and people who lived through very difficult times in life. So anytime anyone tells you that coming to Jesus and giving your life to Jesus and becoming a Christian is going to be sunshine and rainbows. And as soon as you give your life to Jesus, life is supposed to be easy when you become a Christian. Everything is, all the past is in the past. Your new life starts now. And once you're saved, everything that you're worried about is done. You are saved now. Life is going to be happy. You have salvation now. Beware of people who tell you, hey, give us money and God will give you more money in return. Because that is a false gospel. There's people in the world, there's churches in the world telling people today that God, if you worship God, if you believe in God, then you're gonna be given wealth, and you're gonna have great health, and you're gonna have all kinds of prosperity in your life. Give this to us and God will give you 3 times in return. Lies. Wake up call for somebody. God does not owe you anything. We don't give to God because we want something in return, because we expect something in return. We give to God in return of everything that He has already done. Just think to yourself how much God has already done for me. He has given me eternal life. He has given me grace. He has given me everything that I don't deserve in my life. And He's given me all these things. All I have to give Him is gratitude. Think of everything that He's already done. And so, whenever you read the Bible, just pick a random book. Pick any random book, any account, and you will find out that the people that God chose, the people that God loved, the people that were faithful to God, they all went through a period of loss. They all went through difficult times. They all went through things that nobody would choose in their lives. And then tell me if there's anywhere in the Bible, anywhere in the scriptures where God tells you, I want your life to be comfortable, that your life needs to be comfortable. Anywhere. You can't find it. Even His own Son was born into a poor household. He grew up poor. He lived a very humble life. Nowhere does it say that God works like a genie in the bottle. He exists only to fulfill you. He exists only to not disappoint you. That you will never lose anything in life. That you will never experience any kind of loss in your life. See, a season of loss, going through loss is just a part of life. People lose things in life. People lose people in life. People lose opportunities. Loss is a part of life, and that is a fact. It's a truth that we have to wrestle with. We are mortals, that our lives are finite. We don't have forever while we have this life, these bodies, right now. The sad reality is, you will lose some people in your life that you love, and the people that love you are eventually going to lose you. There are many things that I've lost in my life and that you have lost in your life. I lost a dream in my life very early in my life. I wanted to be I've shared the story with some of you, that I wanted to be a soccer playing preacher. I wanted to play soccer. That was my goal. I wanted to play soccer ever since I was a 12-year-old kid. I remember wanting to play soccer professionally, and I knew that God put me on this planet to preach the gospel, but I also wanted to include soccer, and soccer as one of the aspects of my life, that I can continue to preach as I travel and play soccer. And my father paid a lot of money to send me to a soccer academy, and I was pretty good at it. I was very good at playing soccer, and I trained really hard for it. Woke up every morning at 4 a.m. every morning to go and train, and I was pretty good at it. And when the opportunity came for me to come to the United States, I wanted to go to Los Angeles. I wanted to go towards California because there's more soccer in that part of the country. People play soccer a lot more over there, not over here. But somehow things didn't work out, and I found out that there's a possibility for me to come to North Carolina. And the college that I went to kind of fooled me into thinking that they were building a great soccer program. And they told me, hey, we just need somebody with your skill level. We just need somebody of your caliber. Come on in. And we have a great soccer program. We expect to win trophies. And I said, okay, I'm going to come. And as soon as I walked in, the first training session, I kid you not. I'm not trying to say anything bad about anybody. But I saw people who were out of shape. Not just running and their endurance, but literally out of shape. Soccer is a sport that you have to run. And you have to keep on running for 90 minutes. Not a jog, you have to run full speed, sprint the whole time. And I had to see people trying to grab a soccer ball with their hands in the middle of a game. I don't know if you know much about soccer. You can't touch the ball with your hands. And this was a training session before a game. And until I came here, I had never lost a game in my life. I was playing in a semi-professional level in India. And I'd never lost a game in my life because soccer is a team sport. My team was very good. And the first time I came here, the first game I had at the collegiate level, my team lost 19 goals to 1. I scored the 1 goal. 19 goals to 1. I don't know if you know what it feels. It's not like football, 20 points, 25 points. No, a high-scoring game is like 3 goals to 4 goals. 19 goals to 1. Can you imagine the loss I took that day? Not just in the game, but on my self-esteem and my self-respect. Never in my life had I thought that I would lose a game like that. But when I did, suffice to say, I did not continue playing soccer. By the time I turned 19 years old, I realized that dream was never going to become a reality. That I'd already lost it after training for a decade. I have nothing to show for it. It gave me a lifestyle of fitness. That would be my gain. That was a plus. But to think I had lost so much time doing something that I loved and to get nothing out of it. That dream was very close to my heart. And that doesn't even come close to what this woman experienced in her life. The woman that we just read about in Luke chapter 7. She was a widow. Not only does she lose her son, she was a widow. Being a widow is almost a death sentence at that time in the world, especially in that culture. Because if you are a widow, you can't just go and get a job. There are no jobs. Your only source of sustenance, your only source of provision is your husband, and he's gone. So now you have literally no one. And the only thing that she had left in her life was her son. The only thing to remember her husband by was her son. The only source of any kind of happiness or joy in her life was her son. The only source of provision in her life was her son. And she loses not just her husband, she also now loses her son. So her life is now over. There's nothing left to show for it. She literally lost everything. Literally. I'm not using the word in a light way. You know how people say, I literally died of laughing. No, you didn't literally die. Do you understand the meaning of the word literally? It means it really happened. I'm literally so full I'll explode. No, you're not going to explode. No, she lost everything. It doesn't get any worse than this. It's a very heavy passage. See, I've never lost a child, and people here might not have experienced the same thing that woman is experiencing, but you have experienced loss. You have experienced what it feels like to lose something. The struggle, not at that magnitude, but it's still the same. You are still struggling to hold on to the faith after experiencing the kind of loss that some of you might have experienced in your life. Holding on to the faith after losing something, or when you know you're about to lose something, that will shake up your faith. I've experienced loss of opportunities in my life. I know you have as well. Some opportunities come your way and now you didn't take them. And then for the rest of your life, you'd probably be wondering, what could my life have looked like if I would have taken that opportunity? But what's gone is now gone. My father lost his opportunity to go to medical school. He wanted to go to medical school, and he was very good at it. But the reason he couldn't go to medical school is because he got no support from his father. And now, how did he deal with that loss? He made sure that his sons will never lack an opportunity because of him. He made sure that his sons never lose an opportunity because of him. People lose opportunities, people lose relationships. A lot of times, that's just, people are people. People disappoint us. People are broken, just like you and I are broken. People are broken. People are messed up, just how I am messed up. People need Jesus. People need God. And a lot of times, broken people hurt other people. I've lost many relationships. Some of them are my fault. Some of them were not my fault. And the ones that are not your fault hurts even more than the ones that were your fault, because you did everything that you could have done. You showed up. You were there for them. And then your heart was not reciprocated. You showed up, but when you were at need, they didn't. Friendships are broken. Relationships are lost. People lose time. Have you ever lost time? Time with someone? Like I said, a decade worth of training for soccer and nothing to show for it. Lost so much time doing something that was not going to be my life. But that's not the only loss that I'm talking about. Not something that you want to do, but time that you miss with your friends and family. See, I went to a boarding school, not because I was a bad kid. I have to say that here over and over again, because people think because you were going to a boarding school, you must have been a bad kid. No. It's because in India and other countries in that part of the world, the best education you can find is in Christian schools. And they happen to be boarding schools. And so when I was 12 years old, I was 12 or 13 years old, I was sent to a boarding school, which was a huge sacrifice on my parents, because the boarding school was over 1,000 miles away. Over 1,000 miles away as a 12-year-old, barely had been a teenager at that point. And my father had to spend so much money that he didn't have, but he figured out a way to send me to that school because it was a sacrifice on his part. Not only financial, but also they never got to see me. Can you imagine leaving your 12-year-old and not seeing them for a year? That was a sacrifice that my parents had to make. So every time they saw me, it was in the winter break for Christmas, they saw me 3 weeks, once a year. Just for 3 weeks. That's it. Less than a month, once a year. Every time they saw me, I was 4 to 5 inches taller. I looked completely different. But that sacrifice, that loss was made for a gain so that I could be here. So that I could preach the gospel, so that I sound the way I do. It hurt back then that I missed my childhood with my parents, and it hurts to this day. Because since the coronavirus, my parents haven't been able to see me. It's been 4 years. And I knew that God was building a life for me here, and if I came here, there's a huge possibility that I will not be able to see them as much as I'd like because they're on the other side of the world. Wouldn't be able to see them, and that's a loss that still hurts to this day. And if me being a son, it can hurt me that much. Think about how much it hurts a parent not being able to see their child. All of us go through losses in our lives. Loss of the things that we desperately need. I've seen people lose houses. I've seen people lose livelihoods. People on the other side of the world experience hardships a lot worse than we can imagine. Sometimes you'll see even people in your family struggling from certain things that you never went through. I remember natural calamities that happen in Asia, earthquakes and tsunamis and floods. Every year there's a flood. Where my parents live, every single year the monsoon comes and there's floods that come in and destroy the crops. They destroy the crops of all these farmers that rely on nothing but just their crop because they have no education. They have no livelihoods except for their crop, and the crop is being destroyed by these floods. And then they have no means to feed their families. Can you imagine the kind of loss that people suffer? There's a lot of losses that we face in our lives. And from my personal experience and what I can gather from the scriptures, there's two kinds of losses. There's unexpected losses that come and shake you up, and then there's expected losses that you see coming, that you know that are on their way. Some examples of unexpected loss that I can tell you is Job, the book of Job. This man who found himself in the middle of a cosmic battle. And the Bible tells us that God says that, see how upright and righteous my servant Job is. And yet, after doing everything right, everything is taken away from him. Literally everything. In a matter of a day, he loses everything. From a mountaintop to the lowest valley, he was a rich man, he was prosperous, he had a big family, he had all the cattle that you could imagine in the world to have at that time in the history of the world. He would be a billionaire in today's standards. And in a matter of just a few hours, loses everything. His family is killed. He loses his livelihood. he loses his health. Everything gone in a matter of a few hours, just like that. His whole life turned upside down. Another one I can think of is Jacob. I actually was going to read you a scripture from the Old Testament when I was talking about loss, because Jacob, the patriarch of Israel, the man whose name got changes from Jacob to Israel, experienced that kind of loss too, unexpected loss. Let me give you a little bit of context, because when Jacob fell in love with the woman he wanted to marry, he was on the run from his brother, and he was young, and he saw this woman, Rachel, and he wanted to get married to her. She was beautiful. She was beautiful, and he wanted to marry her. And so he goes to her father and says, "I want to marry your daughter." And her father says, "Well, if you want to marry my daughter, you're going to have to work for me for 7 years. And after the 7 years, I'm going to give you my daughter." So Jacob worked for 7 years. And the Bible tells us that 7 years seemed like a very short time to him because he loved her so much. And on the wedding night, the cruelest game of switcheroo happened, and the father of the bride didn't tell Jacob that he was going to switch the woman that he was supposed to marry. See, Rachel had an older sister. Rachel was a beautiful woman, that's why Jacob fell in love with her. Rachel was beautiful, and Leah had a beautiful personality. That's the best way I can tell you. That's the best way I can describe it. She had a beautiful personality. And Jacob wasn't in love with Leah. But what happens is on the wedding night, he gets married to this woman who has a veil in front of her face, and Jacob doesn't know who he's marrying. And can you imagine the shock when he lifts up the veil on his wedding night and goes, "What in the world just happened?" And he goes to the father of the bride and he says, "Why did you do this to me?" And he says, "Well, in our custom, we can't give you the younger daughter. You have to marry the older one first." And Jacob probably was thinking, it would have been nice to know that 7 years ago. But then he says, "Well, work for me for 7 more years and I'm going to give you Rachel." And so he works for 7 more years. And the Bible tells us that those 7 years didn't seem like a long time to him because of how much he loved her. And then Jacob is happy. He married Rachel. And then he's having his children. And then one day, suddenly, out of nowhere, when they lived in tents. They were literally, they didn't have a house. They were moving, and they were going to a place that God told them to go. And so Jacob, knowing that he's on the road, finds out his wife went into labor. And while they're on their journey, she gives birth, and in childbirth, she passes away. As soon as she gives birth to her son, she dies. Jacob made his whole life about Rachel, worked for her for 14 years. After how much time he spent for her, after how much he loved her, didn't even get to spend a lifetime with her. Not only did he lose Rachel, he also lost his favorite son out of the 12, Joseph, and he is taken away from him. He loses his most beloved son. See, how bad do you think it's going to feel to work so hard to get to a place, to enjoy the fruit of your labor, but it's never given to you? The blessing is given to you for such a short time, the blessing that you begged so long for, so much for, and then it's suddenly taken away. Rachel was buried on the side of the road. As soon as she died, Jacob couldn't even bury her next to him, where he wanted to get buried. He had to bury her on the side of the road, because in those days, they didn't have funeral homes. If you die, you have to be buried the same day. No time to preserve her, had to bury her quick. He can't even get her to a burial site. Doesn't even have time to mourn. See, because life was moving way too quick, they had to keep going. A lot of times when I experience loss, a lot of times I feel like I don't even have the time to mourn my losses, because if I stop to mourn, I'm going to get in even more trouble. I'm going to lose even more. I never understood the saying, well, someone passed away and heaven gained an angel. Well, heaven's loss is right now heaven's gain is right now my loss. I still have to live without them. I still have to live without the one that I love. See, there's losses that you don't see coming, which are the unexpected ones. And then there's also expected losses. Losses that you see coming from a mile away. The worst feeling is the potential loss of seeing something being lost very close to your heart. Seeing something that you need, seeing something that you love, and knowing that soon it's going to be gone is the worst feeling in the world. Seeing someone die from a long illness, you saw it coming, and it still hurts. And sometimes the loss is not as damaging as the time leading up to the loss. Because what is gone, and now there's nothing that can be done about it. But while it's still here, while I still have it with me, in my presence, there's still the hope that we hold on to, that maybe things can change. Maybe there's still hope, and seeing that hope slowly die is the worst feeling you can experience. Seeing a marriage slowly die when one person has emotionally, in their heart, let go. And no matter how hard the other person works, no matter how hard you try, when someone has made up their minds, all your efforts seem futile. An expected loss in the Bible that I didn't read to you, that you probably know about, was a man named Lazarus, who also died. And this man was Jesus' closest friend, one of his closest friends. If you read John chapter 11, whenever you have the time at your home, you'll find out that before Lazarus died, Jesus was informed of his death. Not like Jesus just taking a walk with his disciples through a random town and comes to a funeral procession and sees this man dead. An unexpected loss. But Lazarus was an expected loss. Lazarus was a friend of Jesus. And his sisters, Lazarus' sisters, Mary and Martha, sent word to Jesus saying, the one that you love is sick and is about to die. You need to come and save him because you love him. And the Bible tells us, and it's very interesting, that it says that because Jesus loved Lazarus, and because Jesus loved Mary and Martha, knowing that Lazarus is about to die, he stayed where he was 2 more days, knowing that Lazarus is going to die. An expected loss. He knew that Lazarus was going to die. Mary and Martha knew that Lazarus was going to die. And he died. It was a loss that they saw coming. And I don't care what kind of loss you might be going through right now. It might be an unexpected one that came out of nowhere, like a flood, like an earthquake, where there was a house and now there's just rubble in front of it. Or it could be an expected loss that you've been anticipating it, you've been waiting for it, and when it finally comes, it still hurts. Either kind of loss can damage your faith. Because I'm going to talk real to you. Sometimes holding on to faith is difficult when you're in a season of loss. I have seen people who were once on fire for God, who wanted to preach the gospel, who were doing great things for God, go through a season of loss and walk away from their faith, walk away from God. You can't tell me that loss doesn't hurt. And the scriptures tell us, Luke chapter 7, it tells us that when Jesus saw the funeral, the words are, the Lord saw her. He saw the widow. He saw her anguish. He saw her pain. He saw what she was going through. And that made me question that Jesus saw her. The Lord saw her. And you fix her problems. Do you see me? Just like you saw this woman, do you still see me? Where are you? I've asked that question many times, just driving down the road or just sitting in a quiet room, lights off, just asking God, where are you? Do you see me? Do you see what I'm going through? The questions that I've asked when I know that I'm about to lose something, I ask, where are you? Do you see me? One of the greatest authors of Christian literature, C.S. Lewis, after losing his wife, that he didn't even get enough time to stay married to when she died of the same thing that took away his mother, cancer. He was going through a very difficult time. And he wrote a book called The Grief Observed, which I encourage you to read, where he just expresses the raw emotions a man is feeling when he's lost his spouse. Almost like the modern book of Job, and I want to read to you what he said in one of his chapters, where he says, "When you are happy, so happy, you have no sense of needing him, so happy that you are tempted to feel his claims upon you as an interruption. If you remember yourself and turn to him with gratitude and praise, you will be welcomed with open arms. But go to him when your need is desperate, when all other help is vain, and what do you find? A door slammed in your face, and a sound of bolting and double bolting on the inside. And after that, silence." Loss hurts. And Jesus, seeing that this woman has lost everything, the woman has lost her husband, and she's now lost her son. Now her whole life is gone. What does Jesus tell her? Don't cry. Don't cry? What do you expect me to do? It's like saying to a 3-year-old that fell and got a boo-boo, don't cry. It's like telling someone who's just heard the news that they have terminal cancer and only a year to live, saying, everything is going to be okay, don't cry. What else do you expect me to do? It almost seems a little harsh when Jesus says, don't cry. It's a little hurtful. How can I not cry? What else am I supposed to do? He asks her to stop crying before he raised her son. I understand, you raised my son, and now I have no reason to cry. I will stop crying when I have him in my arms again, when he's living, and he's up, and he's walking, and he's eating, and he's just going about his life. I can stop crying because I have no reason to cry. But while he is gone, I can't do nothing else, but I have to cry. What else do you suppose? What else am I supposed to do? This son that I held in my arms when he was born, now he's laying down on a pile of wood. Parents aren't supposed to bury their children. What else am I supposed to do? How can I not cry? You see that I have lost everything, and I'm about to lose everything. What do you expect me to do? How can I not break down? I can't get rid of this sinking feeling. I can't get rid of this pit in my stomach that is pulling me down on the floor. I can't get rid of it. Loss hurts. And I want you to notice 2 things in these stories when Jesus brings this man to life. In hindsight, we know he brings them to life. But when he was still laying down, when his mother didn't know what was going to happen, Jesus tells her, don't cry. He tells the woman, don't cry. But when Jesus shows up to Lazarus' funeral, knowing that Lazarus is gone, put up verse 35 from John chapter 11. The shortest verse in the entire Bible is Jesus wept. Jesus cried at Lazarus' funeral. He tells this woman to not cry while her son is dead. And he himself goes and cries at Lazarus' funeral when he knows he's about to raise him up. When he knows that Lazarus is about to come to life, Jesus still cries. What are you telling me, Jesus? I am just confused. Am I supposed to cry at my loss, or am I supposed to stay strong? What am I supposed to do? Because you're confusing me right now. To this woman whose son is dead, you say don't cry. But your friend that is also dead, you cry. The Bible tells us that when Jesus saw the funeral procession, he was moved when he saw this woman. His emotions were stirred. He felt sorry for her. He felt pain for her because Jesus was also human. God has the same emotions. No one asked Jesus to raise this man, but he did that out of his own heart because he wanted to raise him up, because he had the power to do it, because he saw the pain of a woman. No one asked him to do that. But then when someone asked him to come and raise his best friend, he didn't go. He still allowed Lazarus to be taken away. Why? I'm just confused. On the one hand, you do something unprovoked, raise a widow's son. On the other hand, you have been asked, you have been begged, you have been adjourned, and yet you still not show up when Lazarus could have been made better. At one loss you say, don't cry. At the other one, you yourself weep. He knew he was about to raise Lazarus, yet he still cried. I think I know why he cried, because he saw the sisters that begged him to come. And he didn't. He saw the hopelessness in their eyes. He saw their anguish. He saw their pain. Showing us that it is okay sometimes to cry. When you have lost something, it is okay to weep. When someone walked out on you and broke you, it's okay to cry. And come to the one that will never leave. He knows what loss feels like. I don't believe people who say, well, you can't really show your emotions, especially men. You can't really cry. You can't really show your real emotions because people will think you're weak. Jesus, the strongest man who ever lived, cried, knowing how bad loss feels. He told the woman not to cry. Don't cry. After crying it, knowing that he cries in Lazarus' funeral. But he tells the woman, don't cry. Why does he tell her to not cry? Because he's trying to show us that even if you think you have lost something, he can turn it around. I know it sounds harsh to tell a woman who's lost her son, don't cry. But it's not what we need. It's not what he said that we need to focus on. We need to focus on who said it. It's Jesus who said, don't cry. Because if the one who can control the wind, the one who can rebuke the waves, and there's a sudden calm, the one who can speak to nature and it obeys, when he starts to say something, we better pay attention. When Jesus says, don't cry, that means completely different. That is completely different, because Jesus knows something that this woman did. When he tells her don't cry, he is about to do something that she doesn't know about. And the same goes for you. Wherever you are in your life, whatever loss you've experienced, whatever loss that you feel like you're going through right now, you don't know the reason for the season of loss that you're in, but you know the one who raised this woman, the one who raised Lazarus, is your Lord and Savior. He is your Father. He was a stranger to the woman who lost her son. But you have a relationship with him. He is your Father. The Bible tells us that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. Something I didn't read you to this tonight, just to save time, was Luke chapter 7, the beginning of it. I choose scriptures just so that I don't have to read all of them. We can read it at your own time. But before he raises the widow's son, he also heals someone who was about to die, a centurion, a Roman soldier who had a servant who was about to die. Before he raises the widow's son, he had already saved the man's servant who was about to die. And Jesus also got another request. Before he raises this widow's son, somebody comes to him and says, Jesus, can you just heal my servant? He is about to die. I'm about to experience this loss. And Jesus speaks the word, and he is just fine. He's healed. And then he raises the son who was already lost. And I don't know what season you are in right now. If you've already experienced loss, or if you feel like you're about to, or if you feel like you're going through a season where you just can't win. Whatever uncertain season this is, you're losing things that you thought you never would lose. It's not something that has happened, but something that may happen, which is even more scarier. And whenever I'm in this season, you know what I tell myself? And this might help you too. I ask myself, what is the thing in my life that I can't live without? My wife? That's number one thing. My faith? What do you have in your life that you just cannot give up, that you just can't live without? And then I think about the things that I'm worried about, the things that I might lose, the things that I have lost. And there's always something in your life that if it was taken away, you would give everything to have it back. Maybe a family member. Maybe a child. I know a lot of times families can annoy us. We hate little things about our family. Hey, she ate my ice cream again. But if something happened, I didn't have her, I would buy every single ice cream in the world, every single carton, and hope that this would be empty again. So, if I have those things that I would give absolutely everything to have it back. If I still have them, what do I have? I have everything. So no matter what else I could lose, it doesn't matter because God has already given me the things that I need to, that I can't live without. He's given me eternal life. He's given me salvation. So, when we go through times of loss, and this is a skill that I need to learn, to say, I'm okay with it. I might experience loss. I'm okay with loss, but I refuse to lose. I refuse to let this be my end. I will not let this loss be the end of my faith, be the end of my life. It is okay to cry. It is okay to be sad when you go through a loss. Because no loss in His kingdom is really a loss, even when you lose someone. It's not that it's your loss, it's until I see you again. Anytime you lose something close to your heart, doesn't mean that He's not there. He still has the power to do the miracles that He did when He was on this earth. Even in a season of loss, if I have breath in my lungs, if I'm alive, if He woke me up, I have enough reason to give thanks. I am still okay. I can't lose with Jesus on my side. I can't drown with Him in my boat. So the question for tonight that I'm going to leave you with is, can you still hold on to your faith when you feel like you're in a season of loss? Can you still hold on to Him when you're not winning? Because I want to be able to still be faithful to God even when I am losing. This story could have had a horrible ending if Jesus wasn't there. If the widow had to bury her son and Jesus never walked. But Jesus walked in your life. He showed up for you. It was a good ending because she got Him back. See, certain things are irreplaceable in life. I believe there are certain things that we can't get back in life once we lose them. But it's okay because I know that my God, His name is Jehovah Rapha, which means the God who restores, the God who heals. So anytime I lose something, it's not really a loss because I will see them again. It's not really a loss because God knows how to replace it better. He is a God who makes everything better. So let's stand as we end our service. I've always had difficulty telling someone who's lost someone, what do I say? There's nothing I can say that can make the pain go away. And I always think about what would Jesus say in funerals, and we know what Jesus says in funerals. Because He is Father of life. Any funeral He goes to, He disrupts. The outcome is never the same. And I want to ask you, what is in your life that you're losing right now, that you've lost in your life recently? He has the power over death. He has power over everything. Any battle that you're facing, He is stronger than that. Any pain that you have in your life, He is greater than that. We need to learn how to look at loss through the lens of hope. We've already won. You have eternal life. He died for you. You don't have to win God's favor. You already have it. Because I know that He can make beauty from ashes. God can turn mourning into dancing. The song we sing. Let's start believing it. Because in your loss, God will show you His miraculous power and His undeniable love for you.